Hello, Pat Armitstead back again. Good to see you again today. I wanted to share with you today a little bit about my why. Why do I do what I do? And I'm going to do that by telling you a story. I went nursing, as I mentioned in the last video. I was 16 years and 10 months when I began. And the very first man that I ever bedbathed was a man by the name of Bob Hall. Bob had been in a construction accident. A construction crane had fallen on him, and he'd literally been flattened. When he arrived in casualty, the emergency team, stood around the bedside, administering emergency action, but at the time thinking he's not going to make it. Anyway, Bob was still alive 4 hours later, and it was then that they started thinking, well, perhaps we could risk taking him to theatre. We don't really want him to die on the table, and so it was. Bob went to theatre. Didn't die on the table, and as they were taking him back to the recovery ward, the conversation had shifted, and then they were saying, poor beggar, he'll probably be a vegetable. So back in recovery, and in a very short space of time, Bob actually woke up and revealed indeed he wasn't a vegetable. And so at that point, the conversation changed again. And they said, well, he'll never walk again. Bob Hall was in hospital pretty much the whole 3 years of my general nurse training. Whether I was on duty on his ward or not, I saw Bob Hall every day I went to work for 3 years. And Bob walked on 2 sticks to my graduation ceremony. And at the end of the ceremony, he's sitting down the back of the room, he stood up and he waved one of those sticks and he said, I've actually got something I'd like to say. And I started to tremble in my boots a little because I kind of guessed where this might be going. And he came up the front. And my mother was sitting in the front row. I was very afraid about what she might think. And Bob had this big scroll. It was about 3 foot long. And he opened the scroll and started to read it. And he read out all the tricks and pranks and the terrible things that I had done to him over that 3 years. And every now and again my mother would go, oh, Patricia, you didn't. When Bob had finished reading, he turned to me and he said, you don't know what you did. Now, I didn't really get the full meaning of that until 2001. And what I'm now able to see is I wasn't as aware then as I am now, but I arrived in my full authentic self, in my capacity to dare to do what many other nurses would not. I spent a lot of time in matron's office because I was always in trouble for these tricks and pranks that I pulled, especially on Bob. But I thought, my innate capacity to find humour in the worst of times, my spirit to keep showing up time after time after time, even when I'd got into trouble for doing so, and to continue to minister into that space through a time when I didn't set out with intention. It was just a natural extension and part of who I am. So at my core, that natural capacity to be good-humoured and to minister to others and to be a salve for others when they're moving through pain and difficult times, to alleviate suffering, that's my why. That's what I'm here for.